And if you want to fit into the digital media landscape as a photographer, you need to understand how photography is being used in conjunction with things like audio and things like video, because that is where you're going to find your niche. YouTube, what is good? So have you ever had someone ask you a question that really made you just sit back and think, kind of catches you off guard? So it happened to me about 2 weeks ago. I was working with this guy on my Patreon. I do one-on-one coaching over there. I don't really talk about it very much on the YouTube channel, but if you want one-on-one advice with me and do Skype calls, you can get that through the Patreon. I'll link it down below. But he asked me just straight up, he goes, is photography kind of a scam? Like, is everything you're doing with YouTube and other YouTubers doing, are you just selling this fake dream? Is it actually possible to make a living and make money with this craft? Because it just seems like everything is becoming obsolete. Everyone has cell phones now that make a great amazing pictures. Everyone has access to information. There's YouTube channels popping up every single day. Print media is going away. Newspapers have gone away. Weddings have turned all digital, so people aren't paying as much. Everyone's moving more towards video. And while I would agree that video and audio are the two main forms of media that are popular today, there is still a place for photography in today's world if you want to play the game and you want to hustle. So if you're one of those people who just wants to go with the old school way of getting a job with photography, unfortunately it is not 1980 anymore, and you're not going to be able to do that. So if that's you, keep watching the video and hit the thumbs up button, because I might change your mind. Hit the thumbs up button anyways. Let's get to 3,000. But today we're talking about how the photography landscape in the business side has really changed and how you can take advantage of it. We are talking business here today. We are not just talking creativity. If you want to do photography as a hobby, do whatever you want. I do not care. I know you're not in it to make money. This video is for people who are trying to take their passion for a hobby and turn it into something that can either make them full-time money or make them even part-time money on the side. Now, step number one is to shift your mindset away from this old school print model of photography. Now, granted, there is still going to be print advertising. There's still going to be certain magazines out there that do utilize photography. And if you want to be one of those people, I'm sure there's a way you can get into that. It's probably really hard these days. I'm sure there's a lot of barriers to entry, but it's not impossible. So if that's your dream, I think you can still go after it. But for most people, they're going to have to look at media as more of a digital media thing, because that is where everything is shifting to. And if you want to fit into the digital media landscape as a photographer, you need to understand how photography is being used in conjunction with things like audio and things like video, because that is where you're going to find your niche. And also with social media, which we're going to talk about in a second. So let me just show you an example of how all these things tie in together. Let's say Architecture Digest is going to make a YouTube video about a famous celebrity's house. And I've talked before with y'all about the strategy I use with YouTube. Basically, YouTube is like this central marketing hub. This is how basically every business utilizes YouTube. You have this central marketing hub that is free, that people can find you through, and then all these other business and revenue streams trickle down off of it. So let's say a company like Architecture Digest, who I think still does print media as well, this is how they would take advantage of this. They would make a YouTube video about the celebrity's house, and then they would most likely plug their blog or website off of that video. Now, the reason they're going to do this is because they can double dip on advertising dollars. So they can get advertising from YouTube, and then you go over to their actual website and they can get paid through advertising there. So the photography piece of this is it's now supporting media that is going to make money off of this YouTube video. So think in those terms. The photography is still necessary. It's just not the main piece of media anymore. It's kind of the secondary piece of media. So the YouTube video draws an audience, makes some money. Then the people who are really interested go to the secondary media, being the photos on the website. And then the people who are super hardcore are going to go to the third piece of media, which is integrated with the photos once again, and that is the actual printed magazine. So the photos actually end up in two places. They are just going to end up in places that are not the primary source of promotional media anymore. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. A more simple example of how photography applies to media as more of a secondary thing is someone like Joe Rogan's YouTube channel or podcast when it was actually on YouTube. If you go look at those videos, the thumbnails all look extremely professional. They're not just crappy screen grabs. They're actually, some of them are kind of like iconic looking images. Those photos are made on a Leica M10 by their producer, Jamie. But let's say he doesn't know how to actually make a photo. Joe Rogan could very well go out and hire a photographer to hang hang out and do behind the scenes photos and do the thumbnail photos for the YouTube channel so it can help that video media stand out and look more professional. Because as we know today, with all these brands popping up and more people getting involved with YouTube, you win in the details. So something like a very well-made, iconic looking photo as your thumbnail for every podcast is a detail that is going to set you apart from a lot of the competitors out there. So that's just another kind of small example of how good photography can work in conjunction with a piece of video or audio media. Now, another example of this is basically any YouTuber out there who has no experience with photography and doesn't want to hire a photographer. They don't actually have to hire you. You can go out and just make a bunch of stock photos and take advantage of stock websites, because that is where so many YouTubers, especially in the business and like the inspirational world, get their thumbnails from. So they're going to go to these stock photo websites. I heard one guy who spends like a couple $1,000s a month just on YouTube and Instagram content that he's getting from stock websites. So if you're someone who's really just doing photography for fun, you can still think in these terms and say, yo, would an inspirational quote look good on this? Or would this be a good YouTube thumbnail? And if the answer is yes, you can upload it to a stock website and potentially start making a little bit of money that way, because your photography is now a secondary piece of media to all these main pieces of media out there. So real quick, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Cuts. Head over to the link in the description on today's video to get 15% off your first order from Cuts. Cuts is dedicated to creating premium men's apparel that is both versatile and functional. Cuts makes the best t-shirt I've ever owned because of their attention to quality. Their products can be dressed up for a formal business meeting, or they can be dressed down for those weekend photo missions. Cuts offers crew necks, Henleys, and V-necks, and they offer 3 distinct cuts: the curved bottom, elongated, and split bottom. And to go along with all these options, on Earth Day, Cuts announced their 100% natural fiber line sourced from Peru Prima cotton. So you can check out all their products, including their polos and their hoodies and accessories, by going to the link down below, and you can also support the channel at the same time and get 15% off. So head to that link. Thank you, Cuts, for sponsoring today's video. So as of right now in 2021, media that tells a story is in higher demand than ever. That is what every single brand and every single company wants, is the ability to share a story and lifestyle and relatable content on their social media platforms, so their potential customers can essentially see themselves in whatever it is that this company is making, whatever product this is. And to do this, companies need constant media. If you look at Instagram, these big companies are putting out media every single day, all day long, and a lot of it is photo. So this type of photography is a skill in itself. Okay, before, when we were talking about print media, if you wanted to be a National Geographic photographer, you had to have a very specific set of skills to be able to get that job done. The exact same concept applies today to the best lifestyle and relatable content, storytelling content photographers out there. The people who are really good at this job, they crush it. And I like to consider myself as one of the people who does this job very well. I have a lot of experience with it, and it's the type of jobs that I get. Now, the reason I'm able to get these jobs is because this is the way I have slowly built my brand as a photographer. Over time, I have transitioned more and more into just general lifestyle storytelling type content, both here on YouTube as well as my Instagram. So companies find me through YouTube. This is kind of my hustle, okay? You can define your hustle however you want. That's one of the glories of being a freelancer and living in today's world and doing this photography thing. You don't have to be exactly like me. Feel free to take my blueprint and apply it to your stuff. That is completely fine with me, but you can define however you want to get work, and you can define however you want to make money with this stuff. You just have to be smart about it and figure out if there's actually a potential market for it. And in my mind, social media is the biggest market out there for photographers right now. So let me break down how I do this. I have my YouTube channel, which is, like I talked about earlier, the main promotional hub of everything, and then everything trickles down off of that. So one avenue for me for my photography is the art side. So in these YouTube videos, a lot of times I will showcase the art that I'm making, and then over time I can build a collection, maybe make a photo book, I can do prints, and I can sell the art and make money off of it. So if you're someone who specifically wants to work on the art side, there is a potential hustle for you. You have your YouTube channel, figure out a way to incorporate your art into it, figure out a way to convert people from your YouTube over to your Instagram. Now you have your audience in 2 places, and you can sell prints and sell books and things like that. So that is one way I do things. Now I also make an effort to share more of my lifestyle and have more more of a lifestyle piece of actually being a professional photographer on my YouTube channel, which also trickles down to my Instagram. So if you look at my Instagram, I've started to post more photos of myself, more of what I'm actually doing, and I post a lot of Instagram stories about what I'm doing just in my day-to-day life, the lifestyle I'm living, but I make sure they look super professional, and I take every single Instagram story I post as basically an opportunity to practice this lifestyle and storytelling approach, which I in turn sell to clients when they approach me, because companies find me and they see what I'm able to do, which is take life and present it in an interesting, organic feeling way, and they say, hey, we want you to do that exact same thing, but with our brand. And that right there is a skill that a lot of people are ignoring in today's photography world. If you can tell a story and you can integrate a brand into content in a very organic, real life feeling way, you will get paid. I'm telling you, it is a hot commodity right now. Everyone wants it, especially if you can do the photo and the video side. So that's another thing for you. You know, as you learn your camera as a photographer, add in some video elements as well and make more money that way. And here's something very important I want everyone to understand about this topic of growing as a photographer. And it's this concept of perceived value, okay? Any company or client is gonna just look at you and perceive the value you have. This is the reason why I hate promoting, using Instagram and trying to take advantage of social media, because yeah, it's very trivial, but at the end of the day, it helps this perceived value with clients. If they see that you're a photographer and you have even 10,000 followers on Instagram, immediately they're going to say, well, damn, this guy clearly has to know what he's talking about. I mean, he's got 10,000 followers. And if you can keep growing that number and keep building your brand, one, you're going to be able to make money a lot more different ways, but also clients are going to respect you more. Back in the day, I did so many free photo shoots. I did actually 3 free photo shoots for the artist Future. And a lot of people ask me, they go, yo, how much did you charge Future? How does that work? It didn't matter to me because I knew the look and the perceived value of working with Future was the most important piece. And sure enough, I got a bunch of clients because of that paid me a lot of money to do the exact same thing I did for Future for them. So remember, perceived value is just something you can build through these intangibles, like growing your social media, growing a YouTube audience, and also working for free. And another thing with this perceived value is once you get that one client, once you get that first, say, social media client who you do a good job for, now it's going to be easier to get that second client, and then it's going to be easier to get that third client, and fourth, and so on. It's like a snowball going down a hill. So if you're one of those people who's maybe having a hard time finding their first client, finding that first really good job, keep working and go check out a video I'll link in the description down below about why no one cares about your photography. That video is not intended to be rude. It just has some good tips in there about how you can grow on social media and get your name out there and different things you can do. And maybe it's just a matter of you doing a few things wrong that's preventing you from getting the client you want. But the point I'm getting to is to get that first client, it's going to be tough, but once you do, the second one is easier because your perceived value goes up. And as you build a portfolio and as you work with more and more clients and brands, it just continues to grow that way. And there is no substitute for time investment. You always have to invest time into something to get out what you want. And photography, especially in today's world, you would argue it's one of the biggest time investments you have to make. I mean, you might not get paid for 2 or 3 years as you're learning the craft, learning the business, and just kind of understanding how all this stuff works. You gotta remember too, I'm making videos about this after doing this since 2014 was like when I first started working with clients. So it's been a long time. So that's everything I wanted to talk about today. Photography, in my opinion, is just as important as ever, and I think it's being utilized more than ever by media companies. You just have to shift your mindset away from old school methods of making money with photography and start applying it to this new school world. Start getting out there and networking and meeting the right people and just learning this new business and paying attention to how things are working. So hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and if you want to discuss this more in the comments, I'll go ahead and answer comments for the first hour today. Y'all are the truth. I will see you next time.